Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. So excited for this next guest. I have virtually in front of me Krissy Grote. I think I said, I always screw it up.
No, I know. I'm the same way.
She is a podcast host. I would have the pleasure of being on her podcast, and she's just like incredible. She's just someone who lives a very self-aware life, a very independent life, a very happy, fulfilled life, and just like I honestly like look up to her. So if you are looking for a role model of just someone who just like is intentional, just super intentional about things, and inspirational and powerful, go follow Krissy right now and then come back and listen to this podcast. So go what's your handle on Instagram?
Krissy? It's at Krissy Grote, KRISSYGROTE.
Okay. And I'm going to put that link in the show notes and then also subscribe to her podcast.
Yep.
It's so good. I don't curse, but you're not supposed to curse. So just
tell people what the fit.
It's what the fit, but it looks like almost like FUCK. And I'm like, I never want to say.
No, that's okay. That's okay that you don't want to say it. It's really just kind of a play on,
I love it.
Welcome to What the Fit. It's a podcast about what it means to be fit, whatever the F that means.
Yeah.
It can mean a lot of different things. We're cheeky, we're fun. It's just a little play, but yeah.
I love it. Anyways, so Krissy, I'm so excited to have you here. The first question I always ask my guests is to introduce themselves by sharing who they are, what they do, and most importantly, why you do what you do.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me, Tony. I'm pumped to be on. We had such a great time on my podcast. I feel like it was like a fun instant connection. We could have chatted all day about AIM screen names and
literally like we grew up in the same decade and it was just like you connected on so many levels. It's crazy.
It was a good silly time. But yeah, my name's Krissy. I host What the Fit podcast. I've been doing it for just about 3 years. And the podcast is really just a chance for me to connect and share stories. And while, yes, it has kind of a fitness leaning slant, health, wellness, what I'm really trying to get at with the podcast is talking to cool people who are doing really cool stuff. And how is it that they're taking care of themselves in order to show up in the best way possible, in order for them to do the really cool stuff that they're doing. So it looks like, I'm talking to fitness trainers and registered dietitians, but also entrepreneurs, restaurant owners, comedians, entertainers, people that work in social media, just anyone that's just really getting after life. And I'm just interested in like sharing that story because it's what we do to take care of ourselves can be so unique and so personal. And I think it's just like, finding what works for you. And for me, it's always just been helpful to hear how other people are doing it. And maybe I'm not going to take that same approach, but it sparks a little thing in me where I'm like, oh, wait a minute. It really does make me feel good to walk around my house and light every single candle and just look at it. Like maybe that's what I need to do more of. Like maybe that's my self-care activity for the week, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just about connection and sharing stories is what I like to do.
I love that. So why don't you first share a little bit more about your story? Because I feel like you have a very powerful one. And I just don't think like anyone just wakes up and is like, I'm going to start a podcast. Like there's a reason why you want to create a platform and have a voice and share other people's stories. So if you want to let us in a little bit about how Krissy grew up and kind of what led you to here.
So I would say, when I started the podcast and why I wanted to start the podcast, compared to where I am now, like it has been such a journey and such an evolution. I don't think I came at it being like, I want to come on here and be really vulnerable and share the struggles I have and hope that someone relate. Like it didn't feel like that was the intention to start, though that's how it transformed. But just getting started with the podcast, I mean, from such a young age, I just loved being able to meet new people and connect and learn about their story. And then of course, in turn, share mine. Like it's definitely a two-way street on my podcast, right? Like people are sharing, but I'm jumping in too. I feel like, it's more of a conversation, but in terms of background, I always have been really interested and active in health and wellness and kind of trying to achieve a healthy lifestyle. So when I was younger, I was really active in sports and just, never the star athlete. I was like the B player, consistently show up, but I'm not starting. I'm not always sitting on the bench, but it really like sports for me were like way more social. But, as I grew up, and we talked about this when you came on mine, right? I really struggled with my weight and had a lot of trauma at an early age with a messy parents divorcing, an alcoholic, abusive father. There was just a lot of turmoil in my younger years, and I really internalized that and made it mean that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't worthy. So I was always really looking for some external validation. And as I was kind of struggling with my weight growing up, you know, we, it was this weird dichotomy because I was really confident and I, had a lot of friends and I was in the popular crowd, but yet there was always this like this feeling of, okay, I'm not good enough, and I see that I'm different from other girls, being overweight. And that really just picked up as I got older. You hit puberty and you're in high school and you're just more aware of your body. And I started probably like restrictive. I went on like probably a first diet when I was like 10. Like I was in Weight Watchers.
Who put you in Weight Watchers?
My grandma. And it was like because the doctor said I needed to lose weight.
Yeah, no, literally. It's so funny. I write about this in my book, and it's not your story, but it sounds like your story because it's somebody else's story. I try to keep everything super confidential, but it's another story, but you're not alone. I just want you to know that. And I promise you, somebody listening to this, they have the same story.
Totally.
You're unique to you, but it's similar.
Totally. It's a struggle, right? And so yeah, as I, diet after diet kind of thing. And really when I got to college and I was going through a pretty depressive point, just, freshman year, it was a hard adjustment for me. I was away at school and I started really, really restricting what I was eating. Like how many days can I go without eating kind of thing, over exercising. And I was losing a ton of weight, like lost a lot of weight really quickly. And, came home from school that summer and just received so much praise. Wow, you look great. You must be really getting after it. You're on this right path. And I'm like, oh yeah, this feels great to get all these compliments and all this attention around my body size. Internally, obviously it's hell. Right. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, now I have to keep this up. So how can I restrict even more? That turns into, purging, that turns into over exercising. And that was a vicious cycle for, probably 4 to 5 years, like through college and a couple years after college. When I would gain weight, I would lose it again. I would gain weight, I would lose it again. And always super active, like exercise was not really the demon for me. A lot of times it was mostly food because I also realized how great movement makes me feel. There was absolutely a point where, you would use it as punishment, right? If you ate too much, you gotta work it all off and all that bullshit that we tell ourselves. So I was kind of on this path and not really an end in sight for me. Like it just felt, this is going to be the rest of my life. Like I'm just always going to be in this cycle of trying to lose weight. I remember my senior year of high school, we did these time capsules, like me and my friends, like we just like wrote letters to ourselves and like we put a bunch of pictures or whatever and we buried it in someone's backyard. And I remember the first line of the letter that I wrote to myself was, I hope you don't know how many calories you ate today. Because it was just like all consuming for me.
Wow, that's powerful, Krissy.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really powerful.
Yeah. And I, kind of fast forward, I'm really heavily involved in the fitness community here in Cincinnati. It's where I live in Cincinnati. And ClassPass had just come to town. And so that kind of revolutionized the way we were doing fitness because I was a group fitness junkie. I loved group fitness. I loved the energy. I loved the social aspect. I loved that it was different every time you could pop in. So with ClassPass, it allowed me to try out a bunch of different studios, which kind of got me connected to a lot of different studio owners. And then I was at lunch one day with a coworker. And while all of this is happening, in the back of my mind is, I would love to start a podcast. I don't know what that podcast looks like. I don't know what it would be about, but it's just like, I've been consuming podcasts for a couple years. I'm like, oh, I think I could really love this medium. So a coworker at lunch says, oh, hey, these two girls, they started this podcast. Don't even remember what it was, but I just felt this like burning fire inside that said, what if someone starts my podcast before I do? So literally like that moment, I texted a friend who'd also, joined ClassFest at the same time. We were kind of bouncing around together. She was a fitness instructor. I was like, do you want to start a podcast? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, we could just talk to people and like health and fitness, wellness community, like around town, share their stories. And she's like, yeah, let's do it. So got that off the ground. That was July of 2018. She stayed on as my co-host probably through like the first 6 months, and then came back to me and was like, Krissy, this is yours. Like, this is your thing. You just take it. So I've been doing it. So yeah, I have an episode every week. A new episode every week with a guest, and then I do like a solo episode once a week as well. So a Wednesday and Friday release. But through the and it was never my intention, like I mentioned before, to share as deeply as I share. I think it just kind of happened organically. And I remember that I was so nervous to even talk about the guilt I would feel if I missed a workout, like those like very early recordings. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I should share this. And I really learned that if I have that feeling of not wanting to share something, it 100% means I need to share it. And people, just received it really well and would message me and like, oh my God, I needed to hear that. Like, I remember this one episode, I was really nervous because I was talking about that I was comparing myself to past versions of myself. I would look at pictures on my phone and I'd be like, oh, like you looked so good then, like how do I get back to that place, or like trying on clothes that from that time period to see how do they fit now, and I was just really in kind of a dark place with it. And I shared that, and I had so many women reach out and be like, oh my God, like I'm going through the same thing. So I knew, I'm like, this is powerful stuff. Like, you just, almost the scarier it is to lean into it means we have to lean into it more. So that's what I do now. I kind of go off on the mic, and whatever's going on with me, I share. And it's been a huge healing process for me. Like, I look back at those early episodes where I was talking about feeling guilty about missing a workout, talking about kind of body image stuff. And because I was able to like talk it out, I think, and then have also experts in that field, right? Like registered dietitians, people that work in intuitive eating, people that could just give language to how I was feeling, just really helped me process, where now I'm like, I don't feel guilty, 3 years now, I don't feel guilty for missing a workout. I really don't. And it's such a great marker to be like, no, it doesn't happen overnight. For sure. But like, I have a clear, almost calendar in my mind. It's like, no, I'm not in that place anymore. Like, good job. You can make progress. You can kind of move forward. And I think one of the biggest takeaways with, body image stuff is like, now, because it still comes up, you have a bad body image day, or you just not whatever it is, or you feel the need to restrict, or you feel the need, I have to change my body. I know now, for me, that's like a check engine light. That's like, all right, what is really going on? Because it's not about your body. Are you stressed? Are you dealing with some grief? Is there anxiety somewhere? What is it that the default for me is? I have an uncomfortable feeling, must be my body, let's change it. So I can almost kind of like work through that now. Of course, it still comes up, but it's just easier to kind of process.
Well, exactly. And I think that's where it's important to set expectations. And I think for people listening, it's not about never having a bad body image day. Like, you aren't going to love your body every day. And the other thing that I like to teach people is that before you can love your body, you first have to accept it. If you've been hating your body for years, you can't go from hating it to loving it overnight. You have to go from hating it to accepting it, to acknowledging it, to getting a little curious with it, to maybe just being okay with it. to somewhat liking it. Eventually you might love it, not every day. Like it's okay, like it really is a process. And you made it such a good point that it's not about not having the thoughts. You can't we can't predict our thoughts. Our thoughts come and they go, and they're part of us, and they've been part of us for years, and they're not, you can't manage those, but you can change how you respond to them. Right. And what you said is so true, that often, like, it literally is physically impossible to, like, at 7 a.m. in the morning, you look at your body, you're like, actually, I'm not, like, today's a good day.
I'm feeling myself.
Then it's 7 p.m. at night, and you're like, it looks like you gained 40 pounds. It's literally impossible. Right. You did not, your eyes are playing tricks on you. Your mind and your head will see what it wants to see. And exactly like you just said, chances are there's something more emotional going on, hormonal going on, stress, something is creating this disordered view in your mind.
Yeah. It's just, at least for me, the default is your body will change your body. There must be something wrong with your body. And I guess because that's the easy thing, right? It's harder to acknowledge the deeper stuff that's probably going on. It's easy to be like, okay, well, tomorrow I'm just going to do a hard workout, or I'm going to do no carbs, or whatever. Like, that's easy to control. My brain wants to control something. Yeah,
that's such a good point. And I also just think too, especially if you grew up overweight and you grew up where people like you said, when you were younger, you kind of noticed like you were bigger than your peers.
Yeah, of course.
It almost, like, for me, it became what I blamed everything on. It's like, oh, it's because of my weight. It has to be because of my weight. And you almost get used to that. And being able to detach from that is really challenging. But you're right. It's about having something to control, something tangible. And like you said, it is easier to do a detox than to actually listen to your body and heal your relationship with food and heal old past traumas. Like, it's not comfortable, but really you got to do it. You got to do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm really trying to work on right now, is just the very simple act of listening to your body. I've spent so many years turning off any mechanism to pay attention to my body. I don't want to pay attention to hunger. I don't want to pay attention to me being tired. I don't want to pay attention to me being sad, like whatever it is, like it was just shut down. And now that practice and that process of really tuning in, it's difficult for me. It's an ongoing practice, and it may very well be for the rest of my life, but you have to, the time's going to pass. So you got to do something. So I'm trying to recognize, like, okay, this feeling is tired. Okay. I need to rest, or like, this is work stress. Okay. Let's handle this. Or like, I'm feeling sad. Can we let ourselves be sad? Can we not try to move that feeling away? It's difficult. It takes practice.
It does take practice. And like you said, right now it's challenging, and there will always be probably some layer of challenge to it. But just like you get better at responding to those negative body image days, you will be able to respond to, like, know your feelings and your emotions and be able to pinpoint them easier.
Yeah. I think so.
So because it sounds like we kind of skipped. So we were talking about like when your relationship with food and exercise was quite damaged to now where you feel like everything's really, really have been healing. Where was the switch? Like, I know it said it takes time, but like, was there like a moment where it all clicked for you? Was there something pivotal that happened? Was there a specific guest that maybe you interviewed on a podcast that said something and you were just like, wow, I needed to hear that.
Yeah. I don't know if there was one pivotal moment. I think it was just compounded over time, but I did have a guest on who turned into a really great friendship, but she's a registered dietitian, and she was really into kind of intuitive eating and more like body neutrality. So this idea of like, we don't even have to love our bodies or dislike like, how about they just don't matter that much? There's so many more. They're just
a part of us. Exactly.
Yeah, there's so many more important things. And I think it was like just that conversation that gave me language to use, language and words are really powerful. And so then it was just like, okay, I can kind of talk through some of these feelings that I've been having and things that I knew intuitively to be true. Like the idea that our culture says as a woman, if you're smaller, you're worth more, or like they put so much emphasis on shrinking ourselves and how it's blasted kind of at us from every angle at an early age. And like, just that awareness, I'm like, oh, Yeah, that's true. It kind of like freed up to be like, okay, now that I'm aware of this and know this, I don't really have to be a slave to it. Not that it's not there and it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be there, but just like
Mm-hmm.
just that awareness. I think, yeah, that conversation was really helpful for me. I mean, of course, things didn't change overnight, but I really think just being able to talk about it has been the biggest thing. I know now when stuff comes up for me, my strategies are like, I text or I call a friend. And like people that I trust and people that I can just call up. Like I had a day the other day. I saw a picture online, wasn't a good picture of me, wasn't flattering, right? And I kind of spiraled and I'm like, oh, I don't want this out there. All the thoughts we have. I felt shame, I felt embarrassment, I felt I physically felt my face getting hot.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to call my brother. My brother and I are really close. And, as much as we talk about women, men really struggle with this too. And
Yeah,
he's
they
had
do.
his own journey
They do.
and struggle too. So I called him and I was like, Ricky, I'm going to say something. We don't have to, continually talk about it. I need to release the energy out of my body and then we can move on. He's like, all right, let's hear it. And I say what I say how I'm feeling. He was like, yep, I got it. Yep, makes sense. I'm like, okay, thank you. Hang up the phone. And, I dwelled on it for a couple more minutes and then I went on with my night. And I think back on it now, I'm like, it doesn't bother. Like, you just got to release it. If you hold it in there too much, it festers. So, I'll text a friend, hey, I'm not feeling it today. Friends will text me. I know may sound silly, but, I'm been talking about the thighs. I'm like, yep, there are your thighs. There they are. There we go. Let's move on. You just got to get it out.
Yeah. I think that's so true, because I think what people, their default is to take action. They need to fix it. They need to change it. They need to do something. And it's often with the same urgency that, like, how you just described how you felt was very intense, right? Your face was getting hot. You almost like were short of breath. Like it was like really, really taking
it was a
over
visceral
you.
reaction for sure.
And so the response to a lot of, for that, because of that intensity, the response is often with that same intensity. But we know that if you try to go at that intensity full throttle, you're going to burn out, and it's going to lead you right back to where you were, and you're not going to have ever really learned anything. But I think what people forget is that feelings pass, emotions pass.
I know. I forget that all the time.
I forget it too.
In the moment, I'm like, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. This is permanent.
Especially like on sad days, because I've always been known as like the happy girl, the happy kid, the happy smiley person. So when I'm sad, it like feels like so wrong. Like, what is wrong with me? I'm not allowed to be sad. I've worked really, like, I've come very far, and now I just can recognize that, wow, it's a sad day. And like we were talking before we started recording, like about the weather. And it's like, one thing I have to reflect back to is like, if it was a sunny day today, I'd probably be in a really good mood. Like nothing really is happening. I'm just like down because it's dark and it's gloomy, and that's kind of normal. It's like normal to not have as much energy on a dark, gloomy, cold day versus like a hot, sunny day. Like that's completely normal. And the acceptance part is like a huge component. So that was so helpful.
Yeah, no, I'm really actually kind of going through it right now. I'm going through this week is really tough for me. So I don't know if I mentioned this to you when we recorded, but my younger brother passed away in a motorcycle accident.
Oh no.
It'll be 3 years in July. And so his birthday is next week. And it's heavy, right? Like it's just a really heavy, hard time. Everything feels more difficult, simple work tasks that normally I would have motivation to do, things I would enjoy, like it's just not coming easily. And I'm proud of myself in this moment, because as hard and as difficult as it is these days and this, next month and kind of in the month after it, I'm very aware. I'm like, it's not going to be this, I'm not going to feel this way forever. Like where I am right now in this kind of deep grief place, like I'm not going to feel this way forever. I know that I'll come out of it. And it's just really important for me to stay committed to my self-care, even when it's hard. Like this is the time when it's the most important.
Yes.
And it's hard, and it's a discipline, right? And it's just like, kind of like, I got to rest and I got to give myself grace. Yes. But, get to my workouts because I know they make me feel good. Do my work because I know I find value, and I'm, committed, and I have a responsibility, and, get up and do a walk, like things like that, where it's like, it's hard.
Yeah.
But I know that it'll kind of help me in the long run. And just like, yeah, let yourself be sad. This is a sad week. That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
really, that was a trauma that you experienced.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a thing, and I don't really know the research behind it, but like, yeah, it's come up with a few times with like old clients that I've had, and there's like the anniversary of something.
Yeah. It's hard.
It tends to, like, the emotions and the feelings that come up, almost like sometimes like you almost didn't even need to know the date. Your body probably would have felt it before you recognize the date,
Tony,
like
it's crazy.
Yeah. I forget what it's called, but there's something psychological. There's something like legit that's happening.
I'm going to look it up. I know. Well, and it's like, it's good to hear that, because I was kind of second guessing myself. I'm like, are you like, because it was almost so like intuitively came up around this time where I could feel it itching, and I didn't recognize it at first.
Yeah.
And again, this like listening to your body type of thing, right? I'm like, oh man, I'm just feeling like I want to, blow off work, and I want to just shuck all my responsibilities. And I'm kind of, and then I'm like, oh no, that's what this is. Like, you need to pay, give yourself grace again and soften. And
yeah. So I think
it's real. Yeah. Like,
it's so
how does
real.
Your body know?
It's so real. And I think what you're describing is, I think that if you honor being sad and you recognize it as being sad, and you almost like meet yourself in the middle with still taking care of yourself, still following through on your commitments, you won't get to that like F it mode. You won't get to that like, I'm not doing work ever again. Like, I'm taking a whole week off. I'm not doing
I'm flying to Vegas.
Yeah. Like, like you're just, because you honored it and recognize it, like you could maybe go through the week a little slower. Yeah. And that's completely normal. Right. But I think for so many people, because it's easier, right? It goes back to that control, to be all in or all out. We forget that the answer is always in the middle. Yeah. And it's going to take work either way. So let's choose the middle way.
Yeah, exactly.
The balance way.
Right. Yeah. Like in the years past, I would just totally overschedule. Yeah. I would party a lot. I would go out a lot, whatever, any kind of distraction, throw myself into work, throw myself into the podcast, like tons of meetings. And, it feels better, kind of this third year to be like, okay, you're sad. That's okay. Just be there.
Yeah. It makes sense. But it makes sense. Call a friend, call a family member. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Awesome. So, Ari, well, I am curious because I guess we kind of already talked about kind of people that you've interviewed and lessons you've learned from that. But I mean, because you have interviewed so many people, you personally have had your own journey. What would you say are the important either methods or strategies when it comes to trying to make like sustainable, realistic habits or changes when it comes to wellness or fitness? Like, what are some things that have been helpful for you, or things that you've learned through interviewing others?
I think that it's really important that you can identify what makes you feel good. And even if it's like in the moment, right, while you're doing, a 6 a.m. morning workout, like maybe you're like, oh, this doesn't feel good, it's uncomfortable. Yes, okay, fitness sometimes is uncomfortable, but then it's after, and you're like watching the sun come up, or your drive home, and it's like, remember that feeling, right? Like remember like that really good feeling. Or if it's like a meditation practice that you want to get into, and for me that's really difficult to do. I've done like a 30-day challenge, but I could never really make it stick. And where I've had success is to be like, okay, really think about how you feel. Think, like, honor the feeling before you go in. What does that feel like? I don't want to, I'm resistant. This is a waste of time. I have other things I could do. Okay, do the meditation. And then after, you're like, okay, yes, I noticed a difference. I think you just have to have that association, because then you're going to, even though when it is difficult or it's uncomfortable, it's like your little reward. Like, okay, I'm going to get a feeling after. Yeah. And that's how you kind of build it over time.
Yeah. I love that. That's so funny that you say that, because literally when people ask me what's like the one piece of advice you could give if it comes to nutrition, health, wellness, anything, emotions, everything, I'm like, my answer is focus on how you want to feel both now and later. Yeah. Honor your feelings now. Awareness. Focus how you want to feel. But then also think about like, what's the response to your action that you're taking or not taking? And how is that going to feel? And
Yep.
are you okay with feeling that way, whatever the end of that result is?
Yep.
And that will help you align your choices. So
Yeah.
I love that. This is so good. We have so many, like, I feel like just so many connections.
I know, it's so great.
It's so awesome. What was your, this is like a sidebar, guys, but on her podcast, we talked about our screen names. What was your screen name?
Okay, I had about 15 different screen names. I was like one of those, but my very first screen name was Princess Chick 46.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That is amazing.
I had like Stellar Swimmer 37. I had like Freakin' Rican because I'm Puerto Rican. Like,
oh my God, that is amazing. That's
ridiculous ones.
Still to this day, to get into my Facebook account, it is my AOL or AIM address, and it's shut up X just dance at AOL.com.
I love that. That sounds like a Zanga profile. Did you remember Zanga? Or like, Zanga journal and MySpace. And
oh my God.
Look, that sounds like a header for a Zanga.
Yeah, amazing. I may have eventually changed it, but I don't know. I mean, one of those,
you should keep it.
It's all logged in. Like, you know, like I'm pretty sure I've never logged out of Facebook since like 2000 and what was that?
It's with you till you're 50 years old.
No, 2000. Yeah, maybe. When did we get Facebook? I got Facebook. I was like a late bloomer. I got mine like junior year of high school or like senior year of high school. Everybody else had Facebook like their freshman year. So I don't even know. When did I graduate college? I graduated high school in 2008. So I probably had it in like 2007.
Yep. Yeah. That's when I had it, I think. Yeah. Good times, man.
So much fun. All right. This has been amazing. Before we wrap up, is there any last minute kind of comments, thoughts, things that you feel like the listeners need to know?
Yeah, I would just say if you're looking for a new podcast, my community, we like to call them What the Fit Walks. We go on a walk and we put in What the Fit and we listen. Check it out. It's on Spotify, iTunes, Instagram is at What the Fit Podcast. It's really fun. We have great conversation, lots of variety. Like there's tons of different types of people in different industries, all with really incredible stories. So hit it up, DM me, follow me.
Yeah, definitely give Krissy a follow. She's an incredible interviewer. Like I absolutely loved being on your show. I just felt like I was talking to I honestly do feel like we know each other. Like we've only chatted twice, but like
I agree, Tony. We got something strong.
We gotta when you either you come to New York or I'll come to Cincinnati. Perfect. We gotta definitely hang out. But let's do it. Yeah, guys, her podcast is incredible. Her page is awesome. Honestly, she was so vulnerable, open, honest on this episode. So just imagine all the others. So definitely
we get into it.
Yeah, go over a follow. I will put the link in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, take a screenshot of it. Tag us on your stories. I'm at tips_with_Tony with an I or the Tips with Tony podcast. And Krissy, spell out yours again one more time.
Yeah, at Krissy Grote, KRISSYGROTE.
Perfect.
Make it into a song, actually.
Yeah, make it a lyrical. Make it a song. You have to. I don't know if you've ever listened to one of my episodes, but the intro to this podcast is like the most fun song.
No, I have. Yes, it's so good.
It's so good. It's a cute little jingle.
It's a great jingle.
Yeah, I thought about changing it because like I feel like I listen to other people's podcasts and they like tell you everyone like exactly what they're gonna hear and like talk about like their mission and their vision and like all that. And I think it's powerful when I listen to somebody else's podcast. And then there's like mine that it tells you nothing. It's just like, okay, we're gonna sing and dance and then talk about some serious shit.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a hard place too. I know we're gonna wrap up, but like the compare game where you're like, wait, are they doing something? Should I be doing it? And I just try to be like, okay, put your blinders on. This is unique to you. You're doing your thing. Yeah, of course, take some best practices, take some ideas, inspiration, but like stay on your path too.
Yeah.
So I hear you though. It's hard. It's tough.
For sure.
There's a lot of podcasts out there.
There's a lot, but there's none like yours. So that's what makes it special. Tony. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, guys. So if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. A new episode comes out every Tuesday and Thursday. And when you're subscribed, you don't miss a beat. As always, this is Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.